Hi all. Welcome to In the Margins. I'm your host, Ralph Newell, and today's guest is Dr. Amy Diaz, president of Gateway Community College, which is part of the Maricopa Community College system in Phoenix, Arizona. It's good to see you again. Welcome, Dr. Diaz.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. The last time I saw you, we were in Austin, Texas at the NYSCA conference where we recognized Gateway Community College as one of the most promising places to work in community colleges. That program looks to examine the extent to which diversity and inclusion permeates, various aspects of the workplace. And in the edition featuring the 2024 awardees, you said Gateway has embraced the lessons learned from working through the pandemic, creating flexible work and learning schedules to accommodate our employees' interests and students' needs. So often when it comes to student success, and I'm quite guilty of this, I talk more about the outcomes. But before you can have those success stories, you obviously have to have the proper infrastructure. And that starts with the faculty and staff. So what lessons did you learn from the pandemic as it relates to the staff, and how did you guys implement those lessons learned that impact your staff to get the student success outcomes you have today?
Yeah, it's something that we're probably still learning from and still
Mhm.
experimenting with to some degree. But I think, Gateway Community College is the second smallest within the Maricopa system by way of student head count, but we offer the largest number of programs. And
Mhm.
we tend to be recognized by the community as the workforce development college. So we offer a lot of programs that lead directly to employment opportunities for our student completers. And they really help to create a much better way of living for the family unit when a student graduates from like a nuclear medicine technology program or a respiratory care program, or they complete something in our industrial tech division. So what we needed to wrestle with was balancing as soon as possible when COVID was over, getting students to come back to us in person, because some of the programs that we offer require hands-on, in-person demonstration of skills and knowledge. But we wanted to leverage what we were forced to learn, like the rest of the world was forced to learn, which was really how to rethink offering high quality instruction in an online environment. And so I think to some extent, Gateway is really trying to get the right balance of hybrid learning experiences and hybrid student engagement experiences and student support services in place so that students really do have the flexibility to maybe learn the theoretical information in an online environment and only come to campus 2 days a week or 3 days a week instead of 4 or 5 like they would have prior to COVID, to learn and to demonstrate their hands-on practical knowledge. And that took us a while to figure it
Mhm.
out. Right away after the pandemic, I think it was maybe already July of 2020, we were really sort of petitioning for our students to be able to come back. And of course, we have had all the PPE and all those kinds of things, the personal protective equipment in
Mhm.
place to make sure we were safeguarding everyone as best we could. But the reality was, we were able to really think about what kind of infrastructure do we need to have in place to support our faculty and our instructors
Mhm.
in that hybrid learning environment. And so now 4 years later, here we are, in 2024, and we haven't gone back to exactly the way we were doing things before COVID. I doubt most institutions of higher education have done that. But we have been able to really put some professional development practices into place and some programming into place that helps support what traditionally might be faculty who come directly from industry.
Mhm.
They're subject matter experts in industry, and they decide that they're going to um, switch gears and teach people how to do the thing that they are the subject matter expert in, but it
Right.
doesn't necessarily come with that knowledge of how to teach. And so couple that with the pandemic and our interest in continuing to offer flexible learning opportunities, we've really had to put some time and energy and funding into supporting our faculty and our instructors so that they are not only learning how to teach, but they're learning how to teach well in an online environment, in an in-person environment, that they can keep students engaged and really meet the learning outcomes that we have in place for them, and that the standards of the industry have in place for our students.
Okay. You mentioned when you got started there that your campus or group of campuses, you guys are the primary workforce, at least have the most workforce influence, I guess, in the system. So with that, what does the word community and community college mean to you?
Yeah, we are so connected to our community, and by way of employers and industry sectors who need us to help feed their pipeline of future workforce. We have so many examples of partnerships with especially healthcare industries, big hospital systems, that our faculty have direct access to the people they need to have access with in those industries to ensure that we are meeting their needs and that they're helping us to meet their needs in whatever ways that they can. So this could be serving on advisory committees for us. It could be helping to teach as adjunct faculty in our programs from our industry partners. It could be creating internships, clinical experiences. I mean, many of our Gateway students have job offers before they're even done with the program because
Right.
they already are, I'll use air quotes, working
Hmm.
through some sort of clinical exchange or internship or some programmatic element of our design to get them connected to industry partners so that that is almost a seamless process.
Yeah. I asked you that question because, I was digging through your website and reading about your institution. And one of the things that I was so impressed by and intrigued was the hug clinic. Can you tell us more about that and what the impact has been in your community?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things that
Hmm.
um, has been in existence almost 10 years now, I would say. And it really started from a couple of faculty who were, subject matter experts in physical therapy assisting program and respiratory care program. And they felt at the time that our students needed more practical experience. And
Hmm.
as they were researching different ways to do this, um, in addition to the clinical experience that the students were already getting, that they needed to sort of hone their bedside manner, if you will, those kinds of skills. They needed more practical experience with more people. And in researching the needs of the Phoenix area, the greater Phoenix area, those faculty realized that there were so many people who were either underinsured or uninsured who needed the kinds of services that we provided by way of our programs that we offer. So they created the program called Healthcare United at Gateway, HUG, or HUG, the HUG Clinic, as an opportunity for really for us to meet the needs of our community members who are underserved or underinsured or not insured,
Hmm.
and for our students under the expert knowledge and skill of the faculty, were able to further hone their skills and um, their ability to interact with different kinds of people and to know what was going to be their style in developing their own skill for now it's physical therapy assisting, it's respiratory care, it's sonography, it's massage therapy, and occupational therapy assisting. So those are the 5 programs that we primarily offer to the
Hmm.
community. We serve over 100 people a year, multiple appointments usually, and it's all pro bono. It's all for free. So we've
Wow.
been able to secure some grant funding and some other community-based funding to ensure that we can do this. But we estimate that our return to the community by way of services is over $100,000 annually
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
what our students and our faculty are able to provide to our community residents. So it's one of those just organic kinds of programs that came from two faculty members who had really
Hmm.
good ideas, and then they had the support of the college and the support of the community to actually make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I was impressed and intrigued. Unique. I have not heard of very many things like that on college campuses. I guess the closest thing would be, teaching hospitals and things like that. But yeah, no, I applaud you guys for that. And, digging around, another thing I saw, now this, we hear a lot about institutions having food pantries on campus. Now what I'm talking about that you guys have here is not quite a food pantry, but you guys literally have your own butcher shop on campus. And now I love to get fresh meat and grill. So tell us about the butcher shop, how that came about.
Yes, and that's been around for quite a while now. It's
Hmm.
also one of those sort of gems, that are very unique to Gateway specifically. So we have an apprentice meat cutting program, and the primary outcome for those students is that they're going to go work in butcher shops or
Hmm.
large grocery stores, and be a butcher in that field. Um, what's unique about our experience here is that we also do have a small um, store, so that people can purchase the meat at a really reasonable cost. It's usually
Yeah.
meat and or cheese products at
Hmm.
a reasonable cost, because it's the product that the students have practiced, their cutting skills on for the most part. But they have turned it into an opportunity for us to order certain kinds of meat trays and things for special occasions. And they do game processing during hunting season. So they've really sort of turned that program into more than just a training program, right? That we're meeting the needs of the community by way of offering reduced prices on really high quality meat that the students were able to practice on. Um, and we're doing our grocer service,
Hmm.
uh, our grocer partners, that is, a service by providing an opportunity for them to at least get an entry level of skilled butcher into their workforce.
No, it's interesting. 'Cause, I mean, ironically, I was at Costco, I don't know, Saturday or Sunday, just past weekend, and I was passing the fresh meat section, and I saw a guy back there, carving steaks or whatever he was doing. And I actually said to myself, I wonder how a person learns how to do that. So literally answered my question the other day when I was going through your website. I said, okay, there are programs
Yeah,
out
it's
there.
very unique, pretty specialized. Like a lot of the programs that we offer at Gateway, I think are opportunities to meet almost niche workforce
Hmm.
needs in our community. But I did want to mention, just with our food pantry, so many community colleges, especially these days, have food pantries and clothing closets and
Hmm.
opportunities for students to get bus passes and light rail. We happen to be on the light rail stop here as well, and so our students can get light rail passes. But we also partner with our local food pantry distributor, uh, and St. Mary's Food Bank, and they
Hmm.
come twice a month to our campus location here and use it as a food distribution location, not only for Gateway students and employees, but also for the surrounding community members that live, close enough to identify Gateway as a place that they would come to get, produce and bread and cereal and all the different kinds of things that the St. Mary's Food Bank brings in a huge semi truck.
Hmm.
They drop everything off on a Tuesday morning, and our student life and leadership team and our DEI center and our faculty and our staff volunteer their time and have perfected the drive-through food bank that ends up right outside of my office window here, two
Okay.
Tuesdays a month. And that's also a pretty special opportunity that we've been able to um, just create to meet the needs of our community above and beyond the non-perishable food items that we have in our food pantry that students can check out on any given day.
Hmm. Hmm. talking about this food makes me, think more about food here. So when it comes to food, what is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, oh gosh. Um, well, I'm definitely a chip person over a sweet person.
Ooh, me
So
too.
any sort of chip, right? Any sort of chip. But I really love Italian food, and
Okay.
I'm a steak person too. I mean, that's like you almost don't want to say that these days, right? But
Oh, you can say
really
it.
enjoy a good steak, yeah.
I am in that camp. Gosh, my mind is just racing here, and I'm going back to the butcher shop, and you talked about people can bring in fresh game and have that process. I never really thought of Arizona as hunting ground. So what type of game do they bring? Do you know?
Well, I'm sure I probably don't know all the variety, but
Hmm.
Arizona it's more seasonal than you would think, especially when you get either north or south
North, yeah,
of the
definitely.
valley. It's pretty mountainous, and definitely has a winter season
Mhm.
that you would not recognize, in Maricopa County necessarily.
Right.
But so deer, elk, maybe bison. Those are
Okay.
those are the three that come to mind that I'm sure people are more apt to hunt and or have processed for um, consumption.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, good deal. But yes, definitely I've been to northern Arizona, so yeah, definitely not Phoenix weather, if you will.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I said, talk about all this food. I've always had not a guilty pleasure, but a desire to one day to open a restaurant. So maybe I'll have to get
Yeah.
into one of the entrepreneurial programs you guys have, because I was reading and I would say congratulations are in order that you were recently named to the appointed to the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship Board of Directors. So I know you probably haven't even had your first meeting yet, but preliminarily, what are your goals for yourself and the board?
Well, you're right. I have not had the very first meeting, but I'm definitely aware of the work of NACCE, and many of our faculty and staff in Maricopa have
Mhm.
been involved in one way, shape, or form with NACCE over the years. So for me personally, as a new board member, I want to see how I can contribute and how maybe I can add a different perspective, perhaps than some of the other board members might already be bringing to the table. And some of that might be the examples of things that we are doing here in Arizona and
Mhm.
specifically at Gateway to think about entrepreneurship as not just being an entrepreneur, not just owning your own business as the most obvious example, but
Right,
how to develop an entrepreneurial mindset.
right,
How do we help any person, any student, any community member um, think about themselves as maybe the director of their own lives, and that there's an entrepreneurial mindset that comes with some of that work. It may mean going into business for yourself, but it may not. It may mean the kinds of things that someone naturally brings to their job, even if they are working for someone else, that is entrepreneurial in nature. So I think of innovation, I think of maybe having a slightly higher risk tolerance for
hmm
trying things that some people might not have that naturally built into their personalities. Um, Thinking about ways of partnering with community and other organizational groups that might help us to achieve our goals. So for me personally, I know I'll learn a lot in my very first year on the board, but I also hope to bring some of the examples of the things that Gateway and other Maricopa community colleges are doing in this really broad space around entrepreneurial education and developing an entrepreneurial mindset.
So how intentional is Gateway and Maricopa with weaving entrepreneurship into the curriculum?
I think it's, I think we have examples of where it's more streamlined, and we have examples where it's almost a standalone um, certificate, for example.
Right.
Like we do offer a certificate in entrepreneurialism or entrepreneurial um, business development. I think our goal through some of our newer endeavors, like the Phoenix Forge, which is the large makerspace down in downtown Phoenix that is a Maricopa asset, but Gateway oversees it and sort of powers it on behalf of the system, that we would want to make that as seamless as possible and have people who are interested in making and creating things recognize that part of that process is entrepreneurial in nature, and that, you know, weaving those things together and not having them be isolated, standalone learning opportunities is one of the goals there. So I think in some ways, some of the kinds of programs we offer, there's a natural opportunity for it to be woven together, like a makerspace experience or a small business incubator type experience. But in other ways, I think we are still probably doing it the way most higher education institutions are, which is, you know, learn what you need to learn in your subject matter and then add an entrepreneurial certificate on at the end. Which actually I'm really proud of us, because we just did we just did this in the last year, because we have a beauty and wellness program, and it's a very successful program, and students are going through and they're becoming cosmetologists or estheticians or massage therapists, and they are able to get their certification or their license and go work somewhere, but they haven't necessarily learned the business side of that, of those areas where they might want to go open a business for themselves. And so what we did, because it's so regulated from a licensure perspective, that we did do like a plus type program where completers in those beauty and wellness programs can earn a certificate in small business development through our entrepreneurial area within our business program, and learn how to literally go into business for themselves using the skills that and the licensure that they have through the beauty and wellness areas.
Okay, so I mean, I remember I was reading about that, you have to correct me. It was two different things. You guys have is it the venture pitch program or the venture cafe?
And they are different things, but they're related.
They're really okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm thinking about these students, you know, who are getting a cosmetology license or learning how to become a butcher, who then they want to open their own shops. How do you put them into these programs so they can see themselves in that light and not just, you know, maybe being a worker?
Right. And that's where I think the intentionality comes in. And so even having the subject matter experts who are our instructors in those fields have some knowledge of how you go about starting your own business, at least plants the seed. You know, it gets the student interested in it before we've allowed them to complete the program and leave, and then we're trying to get them to come back to learn something new. So I think that's where maybe that starts, is that intentionality with the subject matter experts, but then working with the other departments and divisions across the college and maybe even the system that already do that work, and making sure we're making those connections for them. So one example is the Venture Cafe. So our Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation hosts a weekly Venture Cafe every Thursday night from 5 to 7 p.m. It's completely free. They have anywhere from 150 to 250 attendees every week. I've been to it numerous times.
Okay.
It's a great program. And there are, you know, a handful of them across the nation. Phoenix is kind of quickly becoming one of the higher attended weekly venture cafes. But it's all about venture capitalists and investors coming to the table with people who have ideas. And sometimes the idea means that they need a partner to develop their business proposal, but that's where all that happens. You know, there are breakout sessions and keynote speakers and demonstrations that happen within that 2-hour time frame every Thursday night, that literally anyone in the community can go to it, but we cross-reference that to our own students to make sure that our students are attending, and they're themed, you know, so there, it might be that someone doesn't go every Thursday night, but they go the nights where the theme has something to do with the business area that they might be interested in. From that, though, they can meet professionals who do this work, regularly, and they might get connected to someone who sort of takes them under their wing, so to speak, and helps them develop their business plan. And then we have the big pitch. That was the other one you were talking about. So we do the big pitch once in the fall and once in the spring. It is only for community college students at this point, and each of the 10 community colleges within our system have the opportunity to host whatever series of things they host to identify their one student, either individual student or their one small group, because sometimes they're a group of students working on a pitch together. But somehow at each college, one entry is identified, and then they participate in the fall or the spring big pitch against one another. And there is money that's at stake, as prize money,
Right.
notoriety. There are venture capitalists sitting in that audience, and often a couple of key investors are sitting on the panel of judges.
Oh, really? I didn't get that part. So they
yes.
actually, because I saw they could win money for, I guess whoever had the best pitch there. Kind of reminds me of that TV show. I can't think of the name of it right now, but
Well,
but
it's like
yeah,
Shark Tank.
yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So no, that's really impressive that there's opportunity, because $1,000, I think, is what I saw that they could win. I mean, that's anything is a lot to help you get started, but if you actually could have some angel investors there, that's pretty impressive.
Right. That's really the goal, in addition
Mhm.
to just the competition itself, is
Yeah,
to get like-minded people together and see what they can make happen.
yeah. Speaking of like-minded people, you gave me a great segue there. Last year, 2023, Diverse named your chancellor, Dr. Stephen Gonzalez, of the Maricopa County Community College District, our 2023 Diverse Champions awardee. And the Diverse Champions are awarded to people that have unwavering commitment to equal opportunity in community colleges. Um, how has Dr. Gonzalez mentored you, or what have you learned from him that you use in your role at Gateway?
Well, it's a great question, and it's one that I think about pretty regularly, because not only have I worked with him since he's been the chancellor in Maricopa, but I succeeded him as the president here at Gateway. And when I first came to Gateway 8 years ago now, he hired me as an instructional dean. And I had worked in student affairs in another system in Illinois for several years, and decided I was going to try to reinvent myself in community colleges, and was able to make the leap successfully from a student affairs related career to an academic affairs focused career, which isn't something that most people find the opportunity to do. And so I was really fortunate that he hired me, along with a woman by the name of Dr. Maria Weiss, to be an instructional dean at Gateway. And so I remember thinking that Dr. Gonzalez, as the president of Gateway, was such a generous person. He's a generous leader. He's an authentic person, um, able to see the big picture, and when needed, sort of be down in the details with everyone on occasion. And I just remember those were some of my very first impressions of him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's said a couple of things that I have tried to underscore by taking his lead. And one of them is, student recruitment and student retention is everyone's business. Even if you're not in a student-facing role at the college, even if you're in an administrative services area, it's primarily your audience are other employees, right? You're serving other employees across the college, that you too have a role in student retention and in recruitment and retention. And so we've tried to capitalize on that whenever we can, and make sure that we're reminding, and I specifically am reminding everyone that we are constantly doing this, and making the connections, right? Getting the relationships developed with the right people, and making sure that if we're walking around campus and we see someone who looks lost, that we ask them, can we help them find their way? And can we get them connected to the right person or the right area? So that was one thing that is maybe not so new, but I did find that it was refreshing that he was saying that regularly. And the other thing that's true that he still says to all of us in Maricopa, and I certainly remind Gateway of this, is that you can lead from anywhere in the college. You do not have to have a title that sounds like a leadership title in order to lead in a way that is genuine and authentic to you and the kinds of things that you want to see changed. And so this anyone can lead from anywhere in the college is also, I think, a very supportive and a very warm uh, way of leading. It helps
Hmm.
to create that sense of belonging that I think sometimes people long for, and they don't realize that that's maybe what they're longing for, which is, find someone who supports the idea you have and just start doing it, right?
Right,
Ask
right.
for the resources you need to support you. But you don't have to wait for someone else to ask you to do something in order to act on a good idea.
Yeah, actually, I read that or heard that in some of the stuff that I was reading, and you stole my thunder because I was actually going to ask you that shortly. Here, anyone can lead from any position at the college.
Yes,
Um, but what I wanted to, if you want to take that a step further, I'd like to take it a step further.
sure.
Um, with that being a mantra, if you will, how have you seen that empower the staff there to do things that you maybe didn't see it at your previous institution?
Well, absolutely. And one of the most obvious things that I saw at Gateway,
Hmm.
that I think some institutions don't see, is a high level of collegiality across areas of the college that might not normally work together,
Hmm.
um, either because there's not an obvious reason for them to work together, or there just is tension,
Right,
and
right,
it's sort of the stereotypic student affairs versus academic affairs
right.
dynamic, which I have not seen in 8 years here. I still don't see it here. There
Okay.
is such a high level of respect between academic affairs and student affairs, that I think it's some of the, how we talk about culture, and culture is often not seen, but it's felt, or sometimes it's hard to describe, but you can say, well, a professional mentor of mine, Dr. Joe Hill, says culture is simply people like us do things like this,
Hmm.
right? Like that's the easiest way to talk about what does culture really mean. And here at Gateway, student affairs and academic affairs professionals work together regularly
Hmm.
on projects, programs, services that benefit our students.
Right,
So that was
right.
the biggest thing that I saw that was so different about Gateway. And I think that's true across Maricopa as
Hmm.
well. But I see it here day in and day out. Even talking about the hug clinic earlier, I mean, that
Hmm.
was absolutely an exemplar of two faculty having identifying a problem,
Hmm.
researching it, identifying a need, and then asking for financial support to make it happen.
Right,
They
right,
led from their position. And 10 years later, it's
right.
still it's still in existence.
That's
And
awesome.
both of those faculty have since left the institution. One's retired and one's left for another teaching opportunity at another university. But
Okay, okay. Um, when I get back to you and Dr. Gonzalez, your past being very similar, um, both of you started your careers in K-12. Not sure if you knew that about him, but what it what experiences in K-12 did you have that have prepared you for where you are today, and how did you even make that jump?
well, I started right out of college. I started as a junior high math teacher in Beloit, Wisconsin. And in a lot of ways, that was my training ground for all things education. You
Hmm.
go to an institute, you go to a university and you get a degree in teaching, and you sit for and apply for a license, and then they let you free out into the world, and you're a first year teacher and you've done one semester of student teaching, which I might argue is maybe not enough time for you to really feel like you're ready to have your own classroom. But I was surrounded by really great people at the junior high that I taught at, and I knew that I knew the subject matter. Right. What I
Hmm.
didn't know was classroom management as well. I didn't know the kinds of conversations I was going to need to have with some of my students' parents. This is going back a lot of years now, but even the
Mhm.
kinds of family dynamics that I was going to experience. Remember those first couple of years of teaching, and I'm trying to have a conversation with a parent about their son or daughter and maybe missing assignments or something. And I'm realizing in the conversation that the fact that the student's showing up every day
Mhm.
is a small miracle,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
And so I remember just thinking, like, my college preparation did not prepare me for this. Like, I knew how to teach math. I knew I was good at that, but it's all the other things that make that teaching experience a whole profession,
Right.
right? The dynamics between students in the classroom, um, students bullying one another,
Mhm.
students fighting. I mean, there were so many things that I felt that I really wasn't that prepared for that quickly gave me a view of people that I didn't recognize that I needed to have as a teacher.
Mhm.
And so I quickly started to enlist the support of some of the students, that I
Mm.
knew could be leaders and could help me in the classroom, could tell me things about the way of life of a young person in Beloit, Wisconsin that I maybe didn't recognize.
Right.
Uh, and so I had a lot of life lessons as a first
Mhm.
and second year teacher, and they were from the students,
Okay.
right?
So do you have a maybe a particular anecdote or story from that time that you still use today to inspire yourself, your staff, or your students?
Well, absolutely, because what you see in the way someone presents themselves
Mm-hmm.
in a classroom, let's say, might not be anything even close to what they're experiencing day to day. And
Mm-hmm.
when you don't see them for, 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 o'clock the next morning, right? Like,
Yeah.
and just being open to, um, I think, recognizing that some people have really, really hard lives
Mm-hmm.
outside of this structured educational experience that we've created for them. Um, and that sometimes just showing up is maybe the best thing that they can do. And so how do we intervene without intruding? How do we help them even when they're not asking for help, but maybe that we can see that that's really what they need? Um, all of those really nuanced kind of skills that you don't graduate from college and just automatically have those skills, right? You have
Right.
to have conversations with people, and you have to maybe sometimes say things that aren't the right things to say, but someone has to have enough courage to tell you, that you didn't handle that as well as you could have, and this was what really was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that I have anecdotes of um, some of the real life circumstances of the
Right.
students that I taught, and then how do I see a whole person, especially when the student might be trying to disguise some of what's going on with them, right? Because they don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to know. But what are the signs? What are the tells? What are the signals that we're looking for in the student who might actually be asking for help without asking for help?
Yeah. Sometimes they don't know they need it. And I say that, I was listening to what you were saying earlier about you had I guess I'll say a parent teacher conference and you realize like, oh boy, it's amazing that this kid makes it here every day. I grew up in a family of educators, so I've heard those stories. And when you have a student, I'm sure at K-12 and maybe even at the community college who don't have that support from home, seeing the value of an education, how do you support those kids? What do you say to them?
Oh, it might depend on the situation.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I think as the president, I probably don't have very many of these conversations with individual students.
right.
Um, but I do know that our faculty and our staff have them
Hmm.
regularly with the students who they come in contact with. And I think you almost need to know something about the person to know if there's been a behavior change or if there's a pattern of something happening that you might suspect that someone needs help. But I think from all of the resources that I can help to provide, right? I can
Hmm.
advocate, I can create funding for, I can fundraise for, um, I can bring people together and charge them with creating a solution for a problem. Those are
Okay.
the things that I feel like are in my wheelhouse, really, as the president. But um, from counselors to social workers to our financial aid team, our academic advisors, every single faculty and instructor we have, that with the interactions, but we have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And we actually have a lot of resources that might go underutilized
Hmm.
um, from looking at survey data where we know, especially if you look at the last 10 years, I mean, the number of students with mental health issues who are saying, they're self-disclosing, I am depressed or I need help
Hmm.
with um, food insecurity, housing insecurity, those kinds of things, unreliable transportation. We have so many resources and we have so many community resources, to get the student connected from Gateway to the community resource, that therein lies the challenge. It really
Right.
is trying to figure out how do you know especially if the student's not willing to ask.
Hmm.
As soon as they self-disclose something, we've got a team of people who are going to surround them with all the resources they need. But if they're not willing to say it, then I think we have to be more covert in the way that we ensure that we have publications all over campus, that there are QR codes that a student can just take a picture of it and go get the help they need themselves if they don't want to ask for it. Um, but you're posing a great question, and it's one that I think we all kind of wrestle with.
Hmm. Okay. Speaking of problems, I listened to I don't know if you wonder if people listen to this interview or not, but I listened to your interview that you did on the What Women Want Today podcast.
Mm.
And you talked about losing your job at Rock Valley, which was, through really no fault of your own. And ironically, we ran a story today about the University of Alabama system shuttering all of its DEI offices. So, based on your somewhat similar experience, what advice would you give to those that have lost their jobs and want to continue working in higher ed? Because the shuttering of the DE offices in Alabama, they weren't the first. They aren't going to be the last. That has happened at a number of states. At least 10 that I know of so far, this year.
Um, I think my first advice would be to try not to be hard on yourself
Hmm.
of over analyzing what could I have done to have this not be the outcome, right? And in the case that you're describing, it might be fairly easy for people to recognize that they didn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
They wanted to do the work, they wanted to have a certain title, they wanted to be helping students who needed the kind of help that they were uniquely prepared to provide. And as a matter of, let's just say, politics, they're no longer able to do that.
Hmm.
Um, I would say, give yourself a little bit of a breather, update your resume, and get right back out there, because there will be other opportunities in states where that legislation hasn't been taken away,
Hmm.
where the opportunity to do that work is still there, and or find find the job that's adjacent to the job that you're doing, but maybe has a title that doesn't draw attention to it in a way that would be unbecoming.
Yeah.
So there's so many opportunities in higher education that it hurts my heart,
Hmm.
to hear that people are losing their jobs over things that just seem so mean spirited.
Right. Right. Yeah. I thought about asking you that because you you had to somewhat reinvent yourself, and you actually somewhat alluded to it earlier in the conversation, not about yourself, but about that division that exists between academic affairs and student affairs. So, how people could also, like you said, reimagine what they're doing, find something adjacent. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that because I thought some people who hear this later, may
Mhm.
need to hear that word of confidence or know that, they can do it as well.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind, right? And
Yeah.
I think what we're facing now with even thinking of, jobs of the future, but jobs of today,
Mm-hmm.
that there might be some subject matter expertise that's required, and in some
Right.
jobs, much more than others, right? Like a physician, of course, you
Mm-hmm.
need to be a subject matter expert in the area that you're practicing medicine. But in higher education, there might be more opportunity for transferable skills in
Mm-hmm.
some of the jobs that we have available, especially in student affairs. I think there might be a slightly easier pathway from an academic affairs related position into a student affairs um, position. Academic affairs, you usually have to have some teaching experience. So even for people who maybe haven't been an adjunct faculty member, but they meet the qualifications to teach a course, I would say figure out how to do that, figure out how to teach, because you might be able to make the leap between the two areas a little bit easier than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but professional academic advising, coordinating, managing, directing a program of some sort. Um, I mean, I just think that there are so many opportunities, even for jobs that are hard to find people to do, but with the right set of skills and the right
Mm-hmm.
personality, working in fund development, working in fundraising. There
Right.
are endless opportunities for people to work in fundraising roles in higher education. And it's not going to be for everyone because there's a little bit of
Right.
an art and a science there, right? In finding the right personality type and the right person with the right interests um, for that kind of work. But it just seems to me like there's so many opportunities, even in HR.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
find people in HR. I think if you have any IT interests, anymore, you can probably enroll in a fairly short series of courses and gain the subject matter expertise that you
Right.
need, to re-enter in a different area than maybe what you first started. But that was definitely my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it wasn't. Initially, I was still looking for student affairs jobs, um, in addition to looking at jobs outside of higher education.
Okay.
And it was really my husband who convinced me that I had earned 3 college degrees in my lifetime. And the last
Mm-hmm.
one was a doctorate in educational psychology, and that I probably didn't want to use my time and my energy to become a financial planner
Right.
with a degree in educational psychology, that I probably did want to stay in higher education.
Right.
So I do appreciate that he kind of helped me get back on track.
Mm-hmm.
But then I really thought, do I have to stay in student affairs? Maybe there's an opportunity for me in another area of the college.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what landed me here.
Okay. Well, Dr. Diaz, I want to thank you for your time and your insights, in your leadership roles and your experiences. And hopefully, our audience will listen to some of the things that you guys are doing at Gateway and implement them or think about them or use some of, I really love the mantra you guys have of anyone can lead from any position at the institution. I think I'm going to start using that in the office myself. But before I let you go, a couple more questions I was thinking about. So you're from Rockford, Illinois, right?
Yes,
Which is not far from, actually, you guys are closer to Milwaukee than you are to Chicago.
we are.
So
Yep. Depending on
I'm
where you live. Yep, that's true.
yeah, so I'm sitting here wondering, so what are you? Are you a Bears or a Packers fan?
Oh, Bears all the way.
Okay.
Yeah, Bears all the way, but it's a fair question.
Yeah. So but now that you're in Phoenix, you got the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are originally from Chicago. So is it still the Bears?
Well, it is still the Bears, and this is a
Okay.
common discussion between maybe friends from Rockford and my husband and I.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I have an obligation to root for Arizona-based teams now because we live in Arizona.
Right.
Some people would take issue with that, but I always am going to put the Bears over the Cardinals. I'm always going to put the Cubs over the Diamondbacks. And it just so happens that I was able to go to a World Series game last year because it was right here in Phoenix, Arizona. And
Right.
I wore a Diamondbacks cap and may not ever live that down. So
Oh, yeah.
from my Cubs
I
fans, Mhm. Cubs fans friends. Mhm.
yeah, I get that. I can't wear the other team's paraphernalia, but but I understand the reasons why you may have done it.
Mhm.
So, so what is your favorite sport or outside activity?
Well, for me to participate in, let me just say, Olympic season, I'm all into all sports, all things
Right.
sports. Love, love, love sports. For me personally, it's hiking.
Okay.
I love hiking. And, I don't do a ton of it in the middle of the summer here in Arizona, um, simply because you have to be out there at 5 in the morning to do it. But
Right.
I, most of the season, I love hiking in Arizona. I refer to the mountains as my adult playground,
Hmm.
where I get to, just breathe in the fresh air and get to be outside. Um, but I golf on and off. I like golf. I've tried pickleball. I haven't been a crazed pickleball player like some
Hmm.
people are,
Right.
once they picked up the paddle and then they were all in. Um, but really, I think anything that brings people together and gives me a bit of a workout is what I like to do. But I probably love watching football
Okay.
most. I would put football over baseball for watching. Um, but I just went to the WNBA All-Star game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Was that in Arizona or was that in Vegas?
Yes. No, it was in Arizona. It
It
was in
was. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
at the Footprint Center. So
Okay.
we just went to that and I loved watching all of the female basketball players and the USA team played the
Right.
all-star team. They're all all-stars, but and the all-star team beat the USA team, which was also interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that was foretelling anything coming up for the Olympics that we might not be as good as we think we are,
Well,
but
my
who they
guess
lost to, those aren't they weren't chumps. So, you
Right,
know,
right. My guess is that we could have fielded two Olympic teams and
exactly.
probably then had a
Uh,
real match. But
maybe.
yeah, I think we just have such depth of
Yeah.
talent. They could have had
So
champion teams.
exactly. So like I said, I was saying earlier, so when this actually broadcasts, we will be actually in the height of the Olympic season. So you mentioned it earlier. So coming up for you, well, two things. What's your best Olympic memory, and what events are you looking forward to the most?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Um, I I always tend to watch swimming and gymnastics.
Okay.
Those two things. And it's not like I did either one of those things. I mean, I
Hmm.
know how to swim, but I'm not a competitive swimmer. But I think um, going back to um, just remembering like being little and like turning the TV on and watching the swim relays, but definitely the Michael Phelps effect, in terms of swimming and some of the women athletes who are great swimmers. It, it's just interesting for me to watch them because it's such um, a technical sport and it's a
Hmm.
strong sport. Um, so I really, really like swimming and I love gymnastics and I love the Simone Biles story. I just
Yeah.
can't wait. And of course, she's married to a bear. So I mean,
You
there's
had to get that part in. That's
like
right.
all the things, right? It's just like I'm really, really looking forward to it. But I
Yeah.
don't know, other than I remember the year that the American team boycotted the Olympics. I mean, that's a memory
Yeah. Yeah.
that isn't necessarily a good one, but it is definitely a memory that stuck with me. Where today our Gen Zers might not even realize that ever happened.
Right. 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 No. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Any last words? If not, again, say thank you for your time.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to get to know you better as well. And for anyone listening, reach out to me if you have any questions. We love to host people. You can come see our hug clinic, our meat cutting facility. We didn't talk about this, but we're actually going to open up a future 48 accelerator for semiconductor work. So if any of you are listening and have interest in finding out more about semiconductors and the work around that. We're happy to host you here in Phoenix so you can see what we're up to.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Diaz.